So good morning, everyone. And it's just gone 11:30. I'm afraid we're a couple of minutes late. You know what I'm like with tech. I had to get a new Zoom link, and anyway, you don't want to hear about that. For those of you that are joining us for the first time, I'll just introduce myself quickly. I'm Tina Wright. I'm a psychological therapist specialising in CBT, mindfulness, chronic pain and anxiety, and I'm the host here in Beyond the Label, and welcome to the Stress Care Summit. This is day 3 and session 6. I can't believe it's going so quickly. We have had some fantastic speakers so far, and we have some more lined up for the rest of the week. So welcome if you are here for the first time. Do drop your name or a comment, say hello in the comments so that we know you're here and watching. If you're watching on replay, do give us a hashtag replay as well so that we can see who's seen what. And do get involved, do ask questions. If you've got any questions, I'll be monitoring them and can ask our lovely Rebecca here today for you, or if there's anything else you want to ask any of the other speakers, do just comment, do pop a post in, that's fine. And if you don't want to get involved in the conversation, just give us a heart or a thumbs up so that Facebook knows that we're here as well, because it's not great with the algorithm at the moment with groups. So we want to get as many people as possible to be able to see that we're here, because that's what we're doing this for. We're trying to spread the message and give people some free value content. There's lots of stuff that you can learn here. So let's try and spread that love and the messages far and wide on Facebook. So as many comments and hearts as we can, and that's where it will get spread out a lot further in the internet. So I'm here joined with Rebecca this morning, and Rebecca is a mum of 3 from Ireland with a career of 25 years in the financial and commercial roles. And she's tried just about every idea, from juicing to journaling, to keep her frazzled head above water. And she came back to gardening, which is something that she loved as a child. And she's now, having reaped those benefits herself, and learned how to look after her own well-being in the beautiful garden that she's designed and created herself. She's on a mission to spread the love and the knowledge about gardening and how it can help and how to do it. Rebecca wants to inspire women running out of rope everywhere to find the joy in getting their hands dirty and sitting back and smelling the roses. So she started the Busy Woman's Garden, and it's a place where you can work every day to make she works every day rather, to make gardening easy to get into, and helping clients to create exactly the space that they need in their life. So welcome, Rebecca. It's lovely to see you.
Thank you, Tina. Thanks for having me. I'm delighted to be here and to get an opportunity to spread the gardening love a bit further. Thank you.
Oh, no, it's real pleasure to have you here, because we spoke a few weeks ago and we couldn't believe just how much we had in common. It's just unbelievable. This theme is running through all these talks, is that we come on different journeys and we've come from different places, but we sort of get to our own destination in different ways, but that destination is similar. Mm-hmm. And that's where those crossovers are. That's where we then go, we do similar things, but using different techniques and different methods. Do you mind telling us a little bit about what you do and how you come to do it?
Yeah, no problem. So I try and teach people gardening in a simplified way. So I like to demystify it and make it accessible in terms of time spent as well, because it's called the Busy Woman's Garden because people are busy. Everyone has jobs and families, and I suppose gardening can be seen as a chore and another thing on a to-do list rather than something that you can participate in for your own well-being. I think it's been badly served by PR, you know, all these low maintenance gardens and everything are lovely, but sometimes the low maintenance, you're actually doing yourself out of the part that could be good for you. So I'm just trying to change perspectives a little bit around all of that, and to get people, find people an easier way to approach it. I try not to use the jargon and the lingo and the Latin terminology, and I try and keep it as simple and straightforward and fun, because I love a laugh and life's too short. So I think it's ideal for that. So yeah, so that's what I do. How I got into it, I know you've already kind of explained it, but I suppose where it really worked for me was, yeah, I had been trying everything. I was working very hard in a senior role that I worked often hard to attain and was proud to hold in a company I loved. It was all good, but it was finding very difficult to do the job to the sort of standard I wanted to do it at, and be the kind of mother that I wanted to be and that I think we're being told we should be. And I just eventually found it nearly impossible. And COVID came along, and the childcare and school closures here in Ireland were very severe. And that my role wouldn't allow me to work from home, unfortunately. It wasn't the company's fault, it was just the nature of the business, and it just became undoable. So while I was realizing that this was undoable and still clinging to it and hoping and praying that I'd figure out a way and trying and striving, while all of that was going on, I was trying to figure out ways to calm down, because I thought, why can't I, you know, just work this out? And nothing was working. Now, when I look back on it, I can see nothing was working because the situation was probably impossible. But what did help me a lot was going out into my garden, which I wasn't doing at the time for any self-care. I was just trying to tidy up my garden. I suppose I was actually probably attempting to bring a bit of order to something out, you know, that I felt I could control, because everything else was completely collapsing around me or spiraling around me. So I suppose I didn't initially go out to the garden thinking I was doing something to help myself, but by accident, I did. And I think that that's a really useful lesson to share with other people, that when, you know, my business, I don't come up from a chronic pain or a chronic condition background, but I did work in a very male-dominated environment. Everything was very left-brained, very logical, rational, and trying to transition, even in the good times, from that to, you know, a Zen-like state is very difficult at times. Like, there's times you can and things, all the pieces fall into place, but there's times when I found that very, very difficult. And I really think that's where gardening can come into play. If you're not able to unwind to an extent that allows you to maybe do yoga or meditation, or you just can't get into that mindset, gardening is a way to access it by default, I would argue. So I think as well that I'm not just making it up. I think the clues are around us. I think everywhere, the kind of language that we use, even your own acronym, the PETAL system, that was just such a light bulb moment. And I thought, yes, exactly. But, you know, we talk about getting grounded, we talk about finding our roots, we talk about nourishing our souls, we talk about flourishing, blooming. When you're, you know, when a woman is pregnant, they'd often express that, you know, you're blooming. So all these kinds of words hint. Oh, I'm so sorry. I had a feeling that was going to happen. I was trying to turn off my phone. I apologize. Actually, I'm going to turn it off now. I knew I was forgetting something and I was too calm.
I shouldn't worry about it, Rebecca. I've got a dog that keeps coming to the window behind me. These things happen. We live in a real world.
Yeah. So sorry, I'm flapping. Okay, I'll put it on silent. That's what I'll do, as soon as I can't get the off button. Apologies for that. See how cool I am now with the gardening.
Yeah, that's it. The zenness comes through.
The zenness, yeah. What was I saying about it being a way to kind of access it by default? And the cues are there. It's referred to in the Bible. I discovered when I was thinking about doing this talk how often it comes up in literature, how often it comes up in phrases, and you can really see that it's kind of obvious actually that gardening is going to be a benefit. And the ripples of taking it up then, like any kind of self-care, the ripples go way beyond yourself. It's your own health, the relationships with other people, and the kind of clarity and bit of headspace that you get while you're out there are there. And I think for me, the reason why it works when sometimes other things can be hard to tune into, I think it's because it automatically speaks to your five senses. And when you're trying to get into the present or the now, through meditation or other things, the first thing you try and do is tap into your present moment. And often that's through, one of your senses. And by its very nature, gardening is set up to do that. So, there's the sight side of it. Like some of it's very obvious, like, of course, gardening is appealing to the eye and it's lovely to look at a beautiful garden, but even individual flowers as a meditative practice to look at the detail in the sepals and all around, they will stop you in your tracks when you start, really studying them. Some of them are just amazing, and that sense of wonder is fabulous. That you just, it can bring a little bit of joy from something so small. You can use your color combinations in your garden in all kinds of ways. Then you can do something harmonious to make it relaxing, or you can do more. I'm a bit more dynamic, so I go for the multicolored sort of gardening approach. But that can be energetic and energizing. So there's all that around it. The sounds when you're out there are, the rustling of leaves in a bit of a breeze, or grass in a bit of breeze, the bird song, even the pollinators when they're buzzing around the place, the hum of that is, it's like vibrations, isn't it? It's energetic vibrations. It's just fabulous. I have a reel that I made. I went out in my garden on a Sunday morning to try and capture it nice and quiet with just the bird song. And I'll put the link to that in the chat as well for people to go and just see hear what I'm talking about.
That'd be lovely, because I think those nature sounds can be really relaxing, and actually focusing on what we hear rather than what we see sometimes can really be beneficial, because we take in so much visual information, don't we? And just listening to sounds, we can close our eyes and we'll create our own picture of it, and we'll have our own experience of it without being dictated by what is going on around you. And that in itself is meditation.
It is exactly. And that the sense of touch, like obviously it's tactile, you're maybe you're picking flowers, maybe you're weeding, that practice, or deadheading plants, it's repetitive action that can be meditative itself, so I actually love weeding. I find it very satisfying, perversely, but I know
I get you there, because it's almost like that satisfaction of having some weeds and then they're gone, and it's this space, and you've got from a beginning to an end process, haven't you?
There's a real sense of kind of accomplishment in it. And the other side of it is that the actual disturbing of soil. There are bacteria and microbes in the soil that release the happy chemicals in your brain as well. So the soil, getting your hands dirty, which is another one of these euphemisms, but getting your hands dirty really does help. It's, look at kids love playing in the muck. If when you start thinking about it, there's signals that all of this can be good for you are already there. Being out, obviously, just being outside and having fresh air is good for you. But the vitamin D from sunlight, is we all know an awful lot more about vitamin D now than we wish we didn't, but you know, we know that how good it is for our immune systems now. So that's there. The sense of taste, I'm no vegetable gardener, I have to be honest, but I do grow bits and pieces of vegetables. I make my own juice from a few bits that I grow in the garden, and I do have onions and I make rhubarb tarts and bits and pieces. But even if you were never into that, a bit of mint, which itself is a beautiful plant to have in the garden and has a lovely purple flower that lasts nearly all summer. But that mint usually will last nearly all year round. And I've been out on Christmas morning picking a few mint leaves to put into a jug of water on the Christmas table. Other herbs will grow easily. Yeah, rosemary.
Rosemary is one I was then thinking of. Yeah. You can have a lovely hair wash with rosemary, can't you?
You can. Rosemary is my top tip of a plant because it's evergreen. It's drought resistant. It can grow in a pot. You can use it for decoration. Like, it's a lovely foliage background in a floral display, and I've seen people do them Christmas displays with rosemary as well, that you'd have the scent on the Christmas table as well. They're like, so and of course cooking with it and bread, and you can make lovely stuff with rosemary.
Yeah, so that's it, rosemary. And a sprig of rosemary in with your lamb if you're a meat eater. Rosemary is so versatile, isn't it? And it's there for all the senses.
It is, exactly.
I like rosemary.
Yeah. And then, of course, smell. The last of them then is smell. And I mean, that's, I suppose, self-explanatory. Aromatherapy is nearly all based on natural smells. So, between smelly candles and having flowers in your home to, hand creams, potpourri, soaps, like they're everywhere. So that is I suppose one part of it that I don't explore that much, making my own soaps or anything like that, but I have a friend who does, and she makes it from lavender and things like that. I just like the smell of the flowers in the house, but I suppose that's another part of where, beyond just the gardening itself, the garden can be a source of creativity, so I like in the winter when there isn't so much to be doing, I like painting. I kind of went back painting some of the flowers, doing botanical sketches and stuff for the first time in 20 years, because I don't want to give anyone the impression I'm a hippy dippy at one with nature type. Really, I'm not. I'm an accountant, but this has opened up a door, all kinds of doors for me. So, that's why I'm trying to show it. But yeah, there's all sorts. I have friends who make wreaths, make beautiful wreaths for front doors and things from plants they grow themselves. So there's a huge array of creative pastimes that you can nurture for yourself through gardening as well.
Yeah. And I guess, when we're talking about pastimes, pastimes have to be fun, don't they? You're not going to continue doing anything unless it's fun. So, finding those elements of gardening that you enjoy and working out the bits that are fun for you, the bits that replenish you, the bits are calming, perhaps that it's that you need a garden, or you'd like a garden, or flowers, plants to help you calm down. It's finding the right, right combination for you. We've had a question, Rebecca, about how what do you recommend for someone who lives in a flat? I love plants and nature, but I don't own my own garden. I have a tendency to kill plants by accident quite easily. Do you have any recommendations for people who want to get into gardening, but perhaps don't have the space outside to do that?
Okay, well, if you don't have a balcony, if you do have a balcony, I'm not too sure whether you do or you don't, but if you have a balcony, rosemary that we've just mentioned is a great starting point, because you will have color, you will have some green color all year round, and you can add other plants around it. If you don't have a balcony and we're talking about windowsills, there are herbs you grow inside. So even if you just do a little bit of parsley, coriander, those kind of ones, you can buy them in the supermarket. It doesn't have to be dear or that. If you're talking about houseplants now, well, now I'd feel slightly disingenuous talking about houseplants because I have known to be a houseplant killer, but I, at the same time, have some. So I had great success with Monstera, but like the name suggests, they're huge. One indoor houseplant that I don't think can go wrong is the spider plant, and it doesn't get much love, but it's easy.
Love them. I've got them everywhere.
Yeah, oh yeah. I love them too, because they trail if you want them to trail, they take up space if you want them to. They're easy to propagate. So if you have one, you'll have a family of them. So those are the kinds of things, it's Kirsty, is it? Hi Kirsty. Those are the kinds of things that I'd recommend starting with. But I'm happy, Kirsty, if you want to contact me directly in DM or anything afterwards as well, and I'll help you figure out something specific to your own situation, no problem at all. So
yeah, and I think, you know, for me, I'm not great at keeping flowers indoors, but plants. The other one I've got is a money plant, you know, and they're quite easy to, you know, to just keep going and propagate. You know, you can make lots of others from it, so you only buy one, and then within the year you'll have 2 or 3. But yeah,
there's a real sense of achievement from that. That create, you know, getting something to have an offspring and succeed. It's fabulous.
And then you nurture the babies almost. Yeah. At the moment we've got a windowsill full of little cuttings from the spider plant, and basically just used little plastic shot glasses to put them in water to start with, root them, and then you pop them in a little bit of fertilizer, you know, not too strong
compost. Yeah
compost, and then they're all for compost, not fertilizer. But then, you know, they're all now thriving and ready to be given out to friends, you know, in the next few weeks, you know, to say, hey, you know, have a little plant. So yeah, I'd say spider plants or money plants if you're not great at plants, because they're a great starting place. But, you know, as Rebecca says, you know, there's so many that you
there are, yeah. The other way I think as well that gardening is different to other kinds of ways of pursuing self-care is there's a real connectivity around gardening in loads of different ways. Like for me, and I should have said, I suppose, at the start that I had a garden and I lost everything, and I mean everything. Every blade of grass, every tree was lost during an extension of the house about 6 years ago. So I went starting from total scratch 6 years ago, and so I do know what it's like to be looking at the blank canvas going, what am I going to do? You won't do it overnight, and it's easy to become overwhelmed. And I suppose I probably did spend a year or two overwhelmed by it. And I found the solution to that was doing it bit by bit. So I would just focus on, right, I'm just doing this little thing. And it was project by project. So breaking it up into smaller little projects was how I got that. And it is amazing the progress you make when you do that and you look back. You know, when I see the photos that I have of the garden now, and I go, wow, like that wasn't there, you know, even 5 years ago, never mind 6. So so if you're starting out, find a small way of doing it. But the connectivity I was talking about was, for me, right now, this is maybe sound a bit sentimental, but I have plants that remind me a lot of the people who, I suppose, who got me into gardening at the start. I had a granduncle who was almost like a granddad to me, who was an expert gardener. He really was. He was self-taught, but when I look back now, he really, really knew what he was doing. And I just stood by his elbow watching him when I was a kid, and must have absorbed an awful lot more than I appreciated at the time. My mom loved flowers. She was like, there used to be a Stella or Twa ad with this lady with loads of flowers hanging out of the balcony there. But my mother was that woman. So both of them unfortunately have passed on. But there's plants I associate with them. For example, my mom always spoke about the time when I was born that the same uncle brought her up a massive bunch of sweet peas. And she had them in the labour ward, and every nurse and every other mother in the shared ward commented on them. And I always plant sweet peas now because they remind me of feeling cherished. When my mother told me that story, she spoke about it so warmly, you know, that it reminds me of being my mum's daughter, and that my granduncle had a part in it too. So I always plant them, and I tell people those stories because that's one way that I go out and I don't see sweet peas. I think of my mother, you know, I think of that story. I don't see the sweet peas. And at the minute, I feel connected when I have my kids out, you know, and look at it. This is not the Waltons or, you know, the Little House on the Prairie. I have a 10-year-old lad who seems hell-bent on smashing them all with his soccer ball. So, like, you know, it's not all happy clappy. But what I have found, since I started doing the website and the Instagram, he takes the photos for me sometimes, and he loves taking the photos. And, you know, through him taking those photos, he's mindfully looking at photos, and he's getting a little bit of peace, you know, secondhand, but nonetheless, he's out and he's looking at it. The girls I have two girls as well. I have a girl, my middle girl just loves gardening. I think she's going to be like me maybe, or hopefully I'm planting the seed in her first. And my smallest one just loves making a mess and jumping in the puddles, and that's great too, you know. So, and my husband, and my husband has no interest really, not really, but he does do some of the work for me sometimes and gives me a hand. And you know, when he does, I'm so appreciative of him doing that, because I know he doesn't really get, you know, he doesn't get the same kind of enjoyment out of it that I do. And, you know, it does bring us all together sometimes, you know, so it really does. And I know the future side of it then is there's things I'm planting I know I'll never see. They'll just won't grow to full height by the time I pass on. It will be impossible. They're on a different life cycle. And I know that somebody else will. Hopefully my kids or grandkids, but if not, somebody is going to be there to see those. And that's a lovely thing to be doing too. And, you know, then you're connected to the whole big world. You know, I am doing my little bit for the environment. I don't have plastic grass or paving slabs. I'm planting the odd pollinating plant here and there. I'm not, I don't have a full field of wildflowers or anything, but every little bit somebody does is a little bit more, you know, so we're all playing a little part in it. So, that's one of the things I think it's lovely. And, you know, beyond that, I am now, I suppose, at the stage where I can grow more plants than I need, you know, so I was talking in my group this week about dividing plants up as a way of propagating them. And what I do with the extra ones is I give them to friends, you know, I don't sell them, right? I give them away. And then I know they have a little bit of me in their garden, you know, and vice versa when you get the present from somebody else, you know. It is genuinely a genuinely lovely way of reminding yourself of the people you love around you, you know, and who care for you. So from that side of it.
Yeah, and we said about memories as well before, didn't we? About, you know, having cuttings from different places you've been or other people have been, and having in your garden.
Yeah, I do. I have you know, when we go on holidays, I always try and bring back something from the holidays. So even if it's only just buying something in a garden centre that I could buy anywhere, it's still, I got that when I was in such a place. And I try as well to bring home cuttings when I'm on visiting gardens, other people's gardens. It's a great way as well of making friends with neighbours, because people who take an interest in their gardens, it's a good tip. If you see something growing well in your neighbour's garden, there's a fairly good chance that's going to grow well in yours. So pay attention to what's growing well in your own neighbourhood. That should be your first starting point, because it's all very well watching the gardening shows or listening to me, but what's growing locally is probably what will work. And if you can take a deep breath and work up the courage to say to your neighbour, is there any chance you give me a bit of that? I'll take a bet with you that they will. because I think nearly most gardening people love spreading the garden love. So I've never been refused yet. So I think it's worth taking the shot, and you might make a friend, you know, it's another bit of connectivity.
Yeah. And it doesn't cost anything to get that cutting, does it? Then it's not a, you know, it's not a financial cost, and there's so many more benefits to it. So, you know, it's a definite win-win.
It is. It is. You can. There's other ways of I suppose, letting it. Actually, before I move on to that, I was going to start talking about, you know, outings and things like that. But one last thing that I had saw, I don't know if any of you watched The Humans in New York on Facebook. That's very interesting. A guy who just interviews people on the streets of New York and their life stories and stuff. But I just happened to come across one lately where a lady recommended naming a plant after yourself. And her theory behind this, or her, you know, she was just a person on the street, he's not a gardening program or anything, was that, you know, when you see you'll take care of that plant, why not take care of yourself the same way as you take care of that plant? And that by taking care of this plant named after yourself, it would remind you that maybe you need something, maybe you need go to bed early or have a bath or just, you know, not bother doing something maybe. She described the leaves falling off it, that sometimes maybe that's a relationship that you need to maybe not invest so much in anymore or whatever, you know. I just thought that was a lovely idea to remind yourself of self-care.
So even those basic self-care needs of water and food, you know, like they need nourishment, they need some sun, but they also need the rain. So don't be scared of the weather, you know.
Yes.
They become, you know, hardy with the weather. So yeah.
So then
in a garden.
Yeah, it can be a great way of, I suppose, you know, extending beyond your usual circles as well. There's lots of gardening clubs you can join, you know, if you're new to a neighborhood or something, it's a way of moving out beyond it. But even visiting other lovely gardens, like I know in the UK you guys have access to even more than we have here in Ireland, but it's a lovely thing to do, and usually not too expensive of an outing as well, you know, that you can go and spend time, bring a picnic, spend time somewhere and get ideas too, you know, like you can see what are they planting together, what looks good together, you know, and especially if they're local, they've a good chance of working in your garden too. And if you can't get out and about, there's loads of online resources, you know, there's my group, but there's loads of groups, you know, there's tons of Facebook groups, there's seed swap groups and all kinds of things, ways of connecting with people.
Yeah, because there's so many organizations and companies now online that you can buy things from as well, isn't there? You know, it's not like, you know, I don't live near a garden center, or you know, you can go online, get advice, and then buy and have it in your garden within the week sometimes. So
yeah.
You can feel that, you know, you can feel quite empowered to do something quite quickly with it.
You can, and like anything I do is online. So when I do garden advice consultation, that's video calls. So, you know, you don't have to feel restricted by where you live on it, you know. So that, yeah, there's always a way to make it work. But yeah, there's definitely volunteer seed swapping groups where you can swap things.
And, you know, I guess, you know, not necessarily with you, but there are other clubs and things as well around, you know, organisations that do have allotments and things as well in areas where there aren't private gardens. Allotment gardening that is available.
Or community gardening, you know,
gardens.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's we have a good bit of that here actually, where I could see people who are using their skills but don't have the space themselves and are making it beautiful for their community. Like, it's what an amazing thing to do actually, you know, great way to spend your time. So yeah,
that's a good way of then being, you know, learning about the plants, but also getting that community spirit and meeting other people and learning new skills and, you know, knowledge about the things that you're planting or growing, you know, from each other. So, you know, that's something else in the gardening arena that, you know, you can look into as a way of looking after yourself.
Yeah.
So apart from gardening, do you use any other, I mean, that takes up, it sounds like it takes up a lot of time, but I don't know that it does.
No, I think it's more a little and often. It's not that it takes up huge chunks of time, but it's a part of my everyday life. That's the way I'd put it. So the same way as brushing my teeth, it's there all the time. The garden, and that is another one of my major tips, is you're way better off to spend 5 or 10 minutes a day than going mad one Saturday every couple of months. First of all, you're more likely to hurt yourself, like because you probably start pulling and getting too. But every day, if you're just doing a little bit, that's how I've done it. That was probably game changing, I think, when I started doing it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And most people could probably fit 5-10 minutes in a day.
Yeah.
And I guess that's better because the seasons change constantly. There's always going to be new weeds coming up. There's always going to be new things to see and do as well. So, being in there more frequently, doing it is going to help.
That's it. Yeah. And outside, you were asking me outside gardening. Yeah, I do. I still journal. I like to journal. I journal every day. I do yoga routine every morning, a very brief one, but I do every morning. And I do go for walks. I'm lucky to live in a lovely village, and I go for walks most days. And that's it. That is they're what I do. There are small amounts of time. There's small amounts of time, but I kind of swear by them.
Yeah, but that's the thing, isn't it? It's finding those things that suit you, finding exactly how self-care looks for you, and then making it fit into your life. Not necessarily making time for it, but it's almost like making them habits, so that you just do them. Like you say, yoga and journaling every day. It's like the more you do these things on a regular basis, they become your life. They're not a thing to do. They're not on
exactly.
It's what you do.
Yeah. And I do find that I'm way more creative since I took the step back from the office, and that has brought an awful lot more to my life, and I mean in all kinds of ways. Sometimes it's just writing posts online, and or an email or a newsletter or something, and I put a bit of thought into it. And sometimes it's the painting kind of go, and sometimes it's the actual gardening itself, because it can be like painting with plants, that that color doesn't look right there, and moving things around to make it more appealing, so
Well, even if I guess just planting is a form of creation, isn't it? It's creating a plant, it's creative in that way. It's so it's it doesn't have to be specifically designed even for people. You can just have the act of growing something. It's very creative, because sort of how you then nurture it to how it grows. Even like turning it in the sun, like if it is on a windowsill, that sort of thing, creating a different shape from it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And even I have a couple of box hedges, and not much now, not huge amounts of hedging, but I have I had cones, and then I decided, well, I make one into a pyramid, and I made another one into a spiral, and I mean, through a YouTube video, it wasn't actually, anyone listening, it's an awful lot easier than you think, and I was delighted with myself afterwards.
It must look fantastic. I love it when you see them spiral. Mine is only probably 2 foot high, so it's not really going to have enough room.
Not for a spiral, but you could make a pyramid. I made pyramids were easy to do. And they look cool when you have a few different ones beside each other.
Yeah, that's it. So there's lots you can do to be creative, to help your self-care and that. So I guess you've come to this after this career of in finance, and
finance, and I used to manage an R&D lab as well. So I moved across a number of different roles, and that was probably part of the problem, that I was doing too many different things, but I loved it, you know.
Yeah, but sometimes it doesn't suit us at that time in our life, so we do make these changes. Would there be any advice you'd give to your younger self then, you know, that you know now that perhaps you didn't realize back then, or even before then, you know, because
I think I actually think I was probably okay until I had my children. I think that having the children and being so tired, naturally enough, that I lost kind of touch with my self-care stuff. Now, before I had children, people probably weren't using the term self-care as much, but I would have naturally have some balance built into my life. I instinctively had a little bit. Then I had children, and little by little that was all eroded. And at the same time, my career was developing. All the work I had done pre-children was starting to bear a bit of fruit, and I threw myself into that wholeheartedly. I would say to probably not my young self, but my, you know, mid-career self, to be a bit more cautious about, you know, jumping into that the price to be paid for it would be higher than I thought. It's easier said than done, though. You know, there are only so many hours of the day, and you only get so many opportunities. So I don't know if mid-career me would listen.
That's the thing, isn't it? Yeah, because someone might have said it and you might not have heard it at the time.
Exactly.
Anyway.
Yeah. I was just putting one foot in front of the other. But yeah, I think it's easy to kind of get out of kilter, you know, especially something big and life-changing, and it's happening for you, you know, that it's easy to lose touch of the things that were there before.
Yeah, and that time, you know, like after having children, you know, them first few years are so tiring, as you say, but you know, they are mentally draining as well. They're physically and mentally draining. So we don't have as much time. We don't, you know, and if we've ever been even a slight bit of a people pleaser, we start to do that even more at that time, don't we? You know, we'll look after the children's needs. We'll look after the home, the partner. And you know, if we are going back to work, we'll try and do that as well. But it's not, as you say, it's not always the best. So, you know, not always thinking where you're heading on your career, where you going, where you want to be in life. How do you want to show up, rather than necessarily what the next career goal is. Perhaps
exactly.
Bear in mind. Yeah, I think that's really good advice, isn't it? To you know, to think about, because I think we've all been caught up in that. You know, most people in this community, especially, you know, with chronic pain, we have these striving tendencies, this people pleasing, this wanting to achieve and to be seen to be achieving. And we can achieve in various different ways. It doesn't have to be by being at the top of the career ladder, the corporate ladder, or having a huge business. You know, that doesn't have to be your goal. If that's not what you want, you can have it as, you know, whatever makes you happy, and you look after yourself in that space.
Exactly.
So, you know, that's more important, isn't it? That we come to realize. So, do you have any other specific tips for other people? You know, maybe using the gardening or any other of your techniques that would be useful for people listening, you know, that they could use for their self-care or to get started?
Yeah, well, I suppose I've kind of dripped them in little by little, but the starting small would be something, you know, you don't need to redesign the whole garden the first day. I would pick one section of a garden, or one group of pots, or even one pot if you're, you know, but go and do something, try and get started some way, because once you're out there, this will all become self-evident. You know, the gardening will do it for you. You don't need anyone to convince you that this is going to be good for you, because as soon as you're out there, you feel it. So my advice is, first of all, try and get started and do something. I would look locally. So look at the plants that you can see that are growing locally, even if you don't love them. even because there's a certain amount of consumerism bound up in gardening, you know, where they try and sell you the plant that's the current flavor of the month or fashion thing. I try and teach people to love the ones that are working for you. Try and find the way to love the plants that are already thriving in your garden. It's very easy to overlook the ones that are flourishing and become a bit not appreciate them properly. If you try and change your mind about that, you'll make your life an awful lot easier, because you can be banging your head off a brick wall trying to grow, you know, French plants in an Irish garden and be wasting your time. You know?
Yeah, that's it. I guess, you know, I'm thinking, you know, like my soil type around here is so much clay, it just gets sodden in the winter and then really dried out in the summer. And actually, you know, it's no good me trying to grow something that grows well in, you know, something that's a lot lighter than that. So so definitely look local and think locally. You know, so you observe, which is another really good mindful practice anyway, that, you know, observe what's working in your garden and in other gardens locally, break it up into something small. And my other thing is, right, this time of year is the perfect time for planting spring bulbs like daffodils, snowdrops and all of these, okay? And I really think, for me, there is a slight weak point in gardening as a self-care practice, in that there's less to do in the months that are probably the hardest. So if you find the darkest months of the year the toughest months to get through, which a lot of us do, including me, gardening obviously has a bit of a problem that way, that you are, you know, there's less light, there's less things growing and all of that. But if you plant spring bulbs now, especially if you start with snowdrops and try and stagger them throughout the spring, you will have something coming up from Christmas until, you know, April and May, when the rest of the garden is fully back up and running again. And yeah, there's nothing like it. There's nothing like seeing a snowdrop managing to somehow get this really delicate little stem with this big head somehow up through the frost, and you're just kind of, well, no, if that can do that, I can drag myself to work, you know. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I mean, nature, you know, does dumbfound us, doesn't it? You know, it's like, wow, it's survived. That doesn't look like it should survive, but it does. And yeah, and in those toughest months as well, they, you know, they do, don't they?
They really do. So I'd highly recommend that. They're not expensive. They come back every year. It's easy to do. You'll get your hands dirty, so you'll get the feel of the soil, and you've all that expectation and the sort of looking at it, waiting for them to pop up as well, you know, and once did I plant them right, and will they and won't they, and then they do, and you think you're gardening genius. Yeah. So
and it adds that bit of colour as well, you know, even the white of, you know, it's just that brightness in amongst the, you know, the brown soil, or
the
other plants have gone at those times where we are in those dark months. Brilliant idea. I like that. So do you want to tell people how they can work with you, if they were interested?
Yeah, no problem. So I have, you can follow me on Instagram, that's at The Busy Woman's Garden. And I also have a Facebook group, which is The Busy Woman's Garden as well. And you can join in there, it's a free group. And there's lots of people there, and it doesn't matter where you're from. There's people in that group from Sweden, Costa Rica, Australia, France, and plenty of UK and Irish people as well. So we've all sorts of gardening conundrums covered. So join in, there's a bit of fun, you know, we keep it simple. We're not, there's nobody trying to grow cute gardens in there. So I'd love to see people come over.
Yeah. And you've dropped your freebie in there in the group.
Yeah, and I put it in the chat as well, just in case people don't.
Yeah, that would be great. So people can, I think is it 10 top tips?
Yeah, five kind of quick garden wins. So if you want to get started and don't know where to start, I have some kind of quick ways to get off the ground and get up and running in my freebie. So hopefully they'd be helpful too.
Do check that out if you're interested.
Yeah.
So there doesn't appear to be any more questions, but if they come into the inbox at all, Rebecca's in the group. She can answer them straight in the group, or get in touch. We're all here just to make sure that you get the answers this week. So thank you so much, Rebecca. It's been lovely chatting.
Thank you too, Tina.
We will be back at 7 o'clock this evening, and Kirsty Crouch is here, going to be delivering a body shop facial demonstration, so we can have a little pamper with our seeing how to do a facial from an expert. So look forward to seeing some of you then. For now, have a great rest of your day. I'm going to find the button, because I was try and find the button first, and I will speak to you all soon. Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching. Don't forget to comment, like and share if you've enjoyed the video.